Hey, what's going on, guys? Asal Fowler over here with FMO Media, founder of the company, over here with Christine, right? Christine, you're out of Maine. Why don't you just introduce yourself real quick, kind of just people who don't know who you are, just talk about, who you are, where you're from, and what the Maine business is looking like out there for the mortgage scene.
All right. Well, my name's Christine Smith. I'm from First Portland Mortgage. This company's been around about 30 years. I've been with them almost as long. I started out as a closer and a processor at a bank, and then I moved over to this company. Obviously, mortgage brokers have a lot more programs, access to programs, good rates, et cetera, instead of just one set of loan options, loan rates, et cetera. Then I don't know, like maybe 20 something years ago, I was kind of pushed into the loan officer role, but I kept my processing role. It's fun to do a lot of different things. It's a really good background being a loan officer, having been processing, underwriting, closing, because all the other back parts, not just the front part. And so I think that that's really good. And so as I've moved forward and started training other loan officers, I kind of like to have them start out in the processing, assisting kind of role so that they have that background and they know the stuff that's needed and what's not going to be accepted, things like that. We're in Southern Maine, but we do offer mortgages throughout the state of Maine. And it's a pretty busy time up here. Usually the big markets and big changes and big prices don't hit our state, but they definitely have this time, especially after COVID, where people want to get out into the woods and hide, as long as there's some internet access. So a lot of my clients moved to Maine, moved into their second homes as their primary homes for a year or two, and some of them have not left.
Wow. And what's the if you had to give someone the temperature who's not from Maine kind of seeing this, what's the overall Maine market? What's it been looking like for the past, 12 months, 24 months?
Well, it's been crazy. The appreciation in prices, even in small towns, has been pretty big. It's been harder and harder for home buyers to get homes just because there's cash buyers out there, people moving from other states that probably have a little more money than the people here in Maine. So it's making it kind of a tough place for first-time home buyers to buy. Your average France has probably doubled in price in the last 2 to 3 years. So that makes qualifying harder. It makes getting the house harder. I have had some really good luck this week. Just try to do with strong letters as much as possible. Try to take the listing brokers' calls, give them a call. Just trying to make them feel really comfortable that maybe it is okay to take, a bid from a first-time home buyer instead of that cash buyer from California or Texas or wherever.
Where do you see, it's kind of, I don't know, everybody has their own opinion, but like, where do you see the market like right now? We're going through some changes right now. Where do you see, what's your, just a general opinion on where the market is today? Where do you think it's going? What do you think?
A year ago, I would have said appreciation is still coming, and it's going to go a little higher, but it's definitely gone a lot higher since then. So, but I really think there is no room for growth anymore. I think there'll be a little bit more appreciation, but certainly not at the level that we've had on a month-to-month basis in the last year here in Maine. Obviously, all the issues with COVID are lessening as much as possible. So while people have found the state of Maine and love the state of Maine, maybe there won't be so many more coming into the state of Maine, allowing some of our, potential home buyers to grab some homes. And I've definitely noticed in the last week or so that, some of the clients that need mortgages, the ones that I've done letters for are actually getting those houses under contract. So that's exciting for me and definitely for the buyers that have been waiting and putting in offer after offer after offer.
And what do you think? And this is just a personal question, just my thought in me, because I was talking to someone the other day and he was on another side of the country. He was in California and he was saying how, he's like, he was saying he feels like the the herd's going to be thinned out as far as like the potential average person trying to get into a home is going to be much more difficult because of the restrictions versus like, big companies like BlackRock coming in and kind of buying everything up, and with rent prices going up, like, what do you think? Because it may be different where you're at, right? Because he's in a totally different part of the country. California's crazy
Yes.
right now. So, what's your thoughts on that?
Yeah. Um, there are some parts of Maine that are kind of, big into the rentals, but we're
Mhm.
certainly not a California. Um, I've had a lot of clients from out of state looking at homes to use as a second home as well as rent out,
Mm,
but the prices get to a point where they're like, it might be worth it today, but is it going to be worth it later on?
yeah.
Definitely all those first time home buyers that can't buy a house are either going to have to, stay with their parents or rent, which is definitely good for the rental market and landlords. But there's also some of the biggest towns that have rentals. The towns have come in and put some restrictions on, so that they can't like just increase the rent as much as they want because they can do it.
Mm,
So that probably puts a tiny bit of a damper on the rental market. But I mean, considering how many people are in the state of Maine versus how many people are in the state of
yeah.
of California, just totally different markets. So I think that hopefully things will just start to calm down, and maybe the supply of homes to buy
Yeah.
for first time home buyers and move up, move down buyers will be maybe a little bit more, so that these home buyers can be spread out a little bit more over the number of houses available.
Talk to me how, and I'm always interested, just the whole real estate world, right? Whether you're on the loan officer side or real estate agent side, most people don't grow up, right? Just saying like, hey, I want to do mortgages, like, and obviously you
Right.
were banking, so maybe easy transition dealing with the numbers, but how did that actually happen? Did you see somebody in the industry who was just like, wow, you're making crazy money? Like how'd that actually happen where you moved over and like said, all right, I'm going
Yeah.
all in?
Actually, my um, aunt, who was also my next door neighbor, and actually my favorite aunt of all the seven, was working at the bank, and she was a mortgage processor. And she'd been a mortgage processor for quite a while. So I was graduating high school, and she said they needed a person to, just start doing loan input. Back then, everything had to be printed out and signed and all that kind of stuff. So she said there was a job available. So I went in, interviewed, and then started working there while I was going to school. They didn't have, and they still don't have really good school classes, college classes for what we do. And even, my assistant who recently got her license, the testing, the schooling, none of it kind of prepares you for what you end up doing as a mortgage loan originator or even a processor. So that all has to be learned on the job. But I did go for a business. So, and then with a minor in accounting, that was my original plan before I got the job in processing. And then it got super busy. And that's when I transitioned over to a lender from a
Mm,
bank.
mm,
Um, and I made that transition only because one of the vice presidents had recommended me for that job. So that's when I transitioned from the bank over to the mortgage broker. We're actually a lender in the state of Maine, so we do construction loans and things like that, but we also
got
can
it.
act as a broker in that capacity. So um, and the owner of this company had never been in any financial or financial type business. He was actually in the shipping container business, and he's actually
Wow.
from Amsterdam. And he, after living all around the country, decided to settle in Maine with
Mm,
his kids. So that's who I ended up working for. And he eventually, within a few years, pushed me to try to start doing some mortgage loan applications, which was scary in the beginning, but once you get going, it's fine. And we've been around for so long. I have a lot of repeat customers, referrals.
mm.
I don't work with a ton of real estate brokers, but I work with ones that I like, and they're really nice. And I've known them for a long time, and they send me their business. But between the referrals that I get from my prior clients coming back in those real estate companies. Obviously that's what is keeping us going in a time like right now. There's
Yeah.
no refinancing going on at all.
Mhm.
So I think this is the time when probably the mortgage brokers are also going to start to thin out, because there's just not going to be enough business, especially for the new ones.
Yeah, and that's actually something I was going to line up with next because being somebody in the world, right, where I talk to everybody, it seems like the real estate agent, is like the superstar, right? As far as marketing goes, they're flashy and they're driving their nice cars. They make TV shows about them with the $1 million listings and stuff like that.
Uh-huh.
And then it's like the loan officers and mortgage people are just like they're left in the rafters. It's like they're hidden behind the scenes, that. So
Yeah.
I wanted to talk a little bit about that for people who maybe are about to go into that side, like what's some
Uh-huh.
maybe words of advice or things that you wish you knew 30 years ago when you got started, that might maybe give you the competitive advantage right now, even if it's I don't know, maybe it's a sales seminar, a book you read, maybe it's mentorship. I don't know, like what are some key factors that attributed to your success that if someone's just going in, they're like, oh, I need to do that, like good thing I listened to Christine because she just told me I'm going to do X. What would you tell them?
Yeah.
What's words of wisdom?
Well, first of all, don't spend all your money when you get it, because
Yeah.
a lot of loan officers end up leaving because they need to just get a regular job.
Mm.
So when times are good, you definitely want to save some money. Don't spend all your money. And going, I like to present myself as an educator. I'm not trying to make the most buck on every client. I definitely educate them with their choices. I don't say this is what you're gonna do. I say here's what you can do. If I pre-qualify a client and then they end up going with someone who their real estate broker referred them to, 99% of the time they come back to me because I wasn't mad at them that they went somewhere else. They learned their lessons. They didn't get as good of a deal. They didn't get treated like I was treating them, and they refinance or purchase from me their next time. So I don't close doors. I have learned you can't win every deal. Don't get upset about it. Don't cry about it.
Mhm,
Just
mhm.
move on. That's the nature of the beast. And so by being, educating the clients, being nice to them, trying to follow up as much as possible, um, kind of get you the next deal.
So a question for you on that, just because you brought up like, because not everything goes according to plan, right? It's a long process and you're like, you know, I was talking to somebody and I know everybody has probably one or two or maybe 20 of these stories in their wheelhouse, but he was telling me a story about somebody who they were going through and he bought like a horse or something and he financed it and he kind of crushed the deal. And this was kind of like middle America. What do you have anything like that? Or like any crazy, I don't know, funny or horror stories that have happened where you're like, I can't believe that they did that. Like that makes no sense. I'm sure you probably have more than you know what to do with, but I mean, do you have any you can talk about?
Oh, well,
You're like,
being that it's people's financial cases, it's really hard
of course,
to
yeah.
do, but you
No names,
definitely,
no.
yeah, you definitely have clients where mortgage rules are so crazy that
Mm,
they don't know everything. And if you don't know something about someone because they haven't told you, that could
yeah,
blow up a deal later.
yeah.
You might find out, at the very end. The great thing about First Portland is that, for instance, last fall I had a client, and there's this crazy FHA rule where if you were out of work in the last year, if you haven't been back to work for at least 6 months, you can't get a loan. So this person had gotten sick and left their job, but they didn't tell me that they left their job in the beginning of the year. They left their
Mm,
job. Um, I thought they left their job at the end because they were like at a college. So I figured it was like May or whatnot. And so they signed the application. We had all the conditions cleared in December for closing. And there was one condition left. We got the condition and realized that He'd been out of work for more than 6 months during that year and hadn't been back to work for 6 months yet. So that killed the deal. And there's no exceptions.
Mm.
FHA doesn't make exceptions anymore. So since we're a lender, I was able to get my client a loan anyways, just because we have money to lend if it's a good borrower. And then I just said, within the next 6 to 12 months, we've got to refinance you out of this because we basically save our money for construction loans. But there's so many things like that can happen. We try to ask every question. We try to ask everything we can to try to get enough information so that if something's going to blow up, we would rather tell them up front. And that's definitely another big thing for me. Honesty up front. Don't delay bad news. It comes way better in the beginning than it does at the end.
Yeah.
So I tell everyone that is working for me. Don't delay bad news. I'll even talk to them if you want, but it's way better coming up front. And if there's something we can figure out, great. Or if we can put them on the right path so that they're gonna close in 6 months, great. But don't delay bad news for sure.
So I got a great question for you, Christine, and this will be good insight because I think most people, like when you're looking for like whatever the perfect client is, right? It's just like easy, smooth sailing. I mean, think of how many people are out there that don't know they could qualify,
Mhm.
for whatever loan, so
Mhm.
that they're trying to qualify for. So what, for people listening to this, then they're like, wait, can I buy a house? Right? Maybe it's somebody in their mid-20s who's had a job for 7 years and worked their way up through the ranks and is now making 80K and have no idea because they've
Yep.
never thought about it. Or they think they
Yep.
need 100,000 in the bank because they
Yep.
don't understand how the process works. Because there's a lot of people like that, right? They really have no clue, So
Right.
so what does someone need? Someone listening to this right now, what's the ideal client walking through the door? Like, what do they need to get qualified for a loan?
I think the biggest misconception for most
Mhm.
people is that you need a big down payment. So a lot of people are saving for this big down payment that they don't necessarily need. I know my parents and most parents will say you have to have 20% down. Well, in today's world, mortgage insurance is so cheap that it makes no sense to wait to buy a house, especially with today's appreciation.
Mhm.
It doesn't make any sense to wait until you have 20% down. And the better your credit is, the more options you're going to have. The better your income is, the more, options you're going to have. So those are the biggest um, things. And if you don't know, don't not try. Give
Mhm.
us a call and we'll figure it out. And if we have to say no today, at least we can say, here's what you need to do for me to say yes in 3 months, 6 months. We can set up a plan. Um, you don't know till you try. So
Yeah.
that's definitely the biggest
And
advice.
that's definitely the biggest hill to climb, right? Because they don't know, because someone could be listening to this and they think they have to have a bunch of money saved up, or maybe they only have 5,000 or 10,000 saved up. They think like, no way they can qualify. Maybe their credit score is a 650, but until they talk to you, it's like, what are they
They don't know.
doing to, they just don't know. Right. So what they can qualify for. So I love that you said that, because I think there's a lot of misconceptions and people really have no clue. They really don't. Um, so
Definitely.
that's really powerful. What's if you had to say, like why you? Why should people come to get their loans approved and work with you guys maybe over anybody else that might be in the local area?
Well, in Maine, there's not a ton of local lenders.
Mhm.
There might be national lenders who have a local office, but they're still
Mhm.
national. Um, we have an office. We've been here forever. We have never gotten our business directly and always from real estate brokers. We have always directed our business towards the client directly. And so our goal for that is best rates, best programs, um, with the highest service. You can always reach me or my assistant, and um, that's hard to get today.
Mm.
Especially people think, I'll just go to my bank. They're definitely not going to be reached in the evening or on the weekends. Um, and definitely by skipping the middleman, we're the best person. And we have access to I think right now, like 12 different lenders. So not only do we have, you know, 6 or 7 different FHA loans, 4 or 5 different VA loans, we have
Mhm.
all those options for rates. So the more qualified you are, the more lenders I can do a search, and you're not having a whole bunch of credit checks. You come to me, I use my credit check, and I do the searching and the shopping for you.
Got it. And you just because you brought up V loans, I'm actually ex-military myself. Question: can you just answer that? Because I think there's a lot of people who don't know what that actually means, what the VA loan looks like. They don't take advantage of the product. Can you just quickly explain what's a VA loan? If you're ex-military, how do you take advantage of that?
Well, that's definitely the best program there is.
Yeah.
A veteran's loan offers no down payment. Credit scores are as low as 580. You can get one below that, but it gets a lot more difficult.
Mhm.
They're definitely more generous on the debt to income ratio. Um, they have a great refinance program. So if you buy and then the rates go down, there's no appraisal required. So that's awesome because you can definitely refinance very easily without a credit check or an income check. So once you're in, you're in. Another great VA option is you can actually get cash out on your loan up to 100%. There's no other program that will
Wow.
do that. So if you've owned your home for a little bit, especially right now, the VA cash out to 100% can get you a lot of, extra cash to pay off other debt or to
Yeah.
do an improvement on the house. Um, so it's definitely a great program. And there's a funding fee for it on the purchase. But if you have any disability at all, like your 5% or whatever, they waive that fee. So you have no mortgage insurance, no fee, just your standard closing costs, which the seller can pay. So you can literally
Mm.
go into a house with no money down.
Wow. I didn't even know the 100% refund. That's pretty crazy.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So
Yeah.
that's really cool.
90%, there's zero restrictions, up to 100%. All it needs to be doing is improving your situation in some way, like
Got it.
lowering your monthly debt or lowering your interest rate or payment. But up to 90%, no restrictions whatsoever.
Great. And so see that was really good, and that'll make a good clip, most importantly, right there. But why don't we also just get you just talking about, I think it'd be good to just talk about different FHA loans and different products for people to just not know. Like what is an FHA
Yeah.
loan? What is that?
Um, the biggest pet peeve I have is that real estate brokers
Hmm.
think of government loans as somehow bad things. And so they'll choose a conventional loan over a government loan.
Yeah.
Um, I don't know why that is. Things have changed substantially since I've been in the business. From starting in 1995, FHA loans became so much more clear. Guidelines are concise, but the um, guidelines are so much less conservative than conventional or rural development that it's easier to get an FHA loan than it is a conventional loan. So if real estate brokers would take a step back and especially the older ones that get a lot of business, FHA loans aren't scary. Um, and I think less will blow up,
Mm.
frankly. So I wish more real estate brokers would look at those offers, a little more seriously. Um, the debt to income ratio is up to 55%. So it's great for people who might have student loans or things that, are making their debt ratio a little high. Um, the credit score can go down to 550.
Wow.
In most cases, there might be some compensating factors like put a little bit more down, but the minimum down on a standard FHA loan is 3.5%. And you can get that as a gift from a relative. So there's no barrier there. It's definitely the best option, and the rates are lower. So
Mm.
the rates are lower for VA, FHA. So that helps you qualify for a little bit more than you
Yeah.
would on the conventional side as well. So you combine lower rates with lower down payment and higher debt to income ratios, and it makes it a lot more simple to get into a house today.
Yeah, and that's huge. As far as the someone just watching this and just knowing like what's the bare minimums like of what you need as far as credit score, how many years tax returns, what are like the 3 or 4 boxes you check when someone calls you right now and they say, hey, I want to
For
get
an FHA loan or
I want to buy a house.
anything.
I want to buy a house. I want to give me anything. Get me in a house. What are the first few boxes you need to check to figure out what product you need to give them?
Gotcha.
Right.
So definitely if you're employed,
Mhm.
recent year-to-date pay stub and 2 years W-2s. If you're self-employed, then we'll definitely need 2 years tax returns to show the income. So if you've been self-employed less than 2 years, you're going to have a lot of difficulty getting any kind of loan. So if you're thinking about buying a house in the near future and you've got a job, don't leave your job yet. Definitely, I know a lot of people, especially during COVID, went from being employed to self-employed, which
Yeah.
was a great move for them. They probably made more money, but now they need 2 years of tax returns to get qualified for a house. So definitely, if you're thinking about making big changes to your financial situation, call someone such as myself before you do that, just to make sure that it's not going to majorly affect what you want to do in the near future.
Awesome. Awesome. So that was perfect. And any last minute words of wisdom or advice for the people out there, maybe for someone who's thinking about maybe purchasing a home or or getting a loan? What's some words of advice? What's on your brain, Christine? I like to always leave things off with words of wisdom from the person, whether it be someone stepping into the mortgage industry, someone who's about to call you to try and get a loan, and anything that's on your mind just in general.
Yeah. It sounds like a scary thing, but
Mhm.
definitely just give us a call. We walk you through it step by step. We're gonna tell you what needs to be done or tell you that you're approved. So there's no worry about being scared or um, thinking that it's a daunting task.
Hmm.
The way that rent prices are right now, it's definitely worth a phone call to see if there's anything that can be done. Even if you might be paying a little bit more in house payment than you are in rent, at least you're securing your own situation and you're not subject to potentially going up, $500 or $1,000 in the next few years in rent. Um, and if you're not ready, we can get you ready.
Awesome. I love it. Christine, thank you for being on. Until next time,
Yeah.
we will see you guys. All right. Have a good one.